Hello, and thank you for visiting Heart of Calm. If you're looking for a quiet space, where your feelings don't need explaining, and where simply being heard is enough, then I believe this video is here for you. Sometimes, loneliness doesn't sound like silence. It sounds like smiling in a conversation, but still feeling far away. It's sitting next to someone you love, and quietly wondering if they still truly see you. It's doing everything right, and still feeling absent from your own life. After 50, loneliness can show up in softer ways. It doesn't shout. It doesn't make a scene. It just begins to slip in. When your roles start to shift, when the requests fade, when the world outside slows down, but your heart is still longing to be known. This video isn't about fixing loneliness. It's about meeting it gently, with kindness, with a steady breath, and with the quiet truth that you are still here. And you are still worthy of being seen. There's something few people talk about. After 50, many things begin to quiet down. And it's that stillness that can feel the most unfamiliar. Work isn't as demanding anymore. Family routines grow lighter. There are no more rushed morning calls. No more evenings spent juggling everyone else's needs. You have time. Something you used to wish for. But now, this quiet feels nothing like you imagined. It doesn't feel like rest. It feels like a wide, echoing room. A room you still live in, but no one walks through anymore. No overlapping laughter. No simple, passing questions. And maybe what you're missing isn't people, but the quiet connection that once held your days together. The sense that you were seen, that your presence mattered, that your life moved with someone else's. There's a kind of loneliness that's hard to name. It doesn't make you cry at night. It doesn't feel like a breakdown. It just quietly makes you shrink a little more each day. You stop sharing your joys, because no one really listens. You say, "I'm fine," when someone asks, because even you don't know how to explain it. You join conversations, but don't feel truly connected. You still show up, smile, care for others, but deep inside, there's a small space that always wonders, am I really here? Am I being felt? We often ignore this kind of loneliness because it isn't loud. It doesn't cause problems. And because we've grown so used to putting others first, that we actually feel guilty for tuning in to ourselves. Loneliness isn't something wrong. It's not a flaw. And you are not at fault for feeling it. We're often taught that if we're strong enough, positive enough, busy enough, we shouldn't feel lonely. But that's an old belief. And sometimes a harsh one. Loneliness isn't proof of weakness. It's simply a signal, a quiet message from within, that something inside you is asking to be seen. Not by others, but by you. Maybe you've spent years living for others. Children, family, work. The roles that never had names. Maybe you set aside your little joys. Put off your quiet dreams. Told yourself, later. And then, when those you once cared for begin to grow distant, when the house becomes quieter, when time returns to you, you realize You no longer know where to begin. In that moment, loneliness is not an enemy. It's an old friend, patient and soft, coming to gently remind you to return to the woman you once were. The woman who once had her own thoughts, her own feelings, who knew exactly what made her happy and what quietly broke her heart. That woman has been quiet for a very long time, because you've placed others before her for far too long. Before you can reconnect with anyone else, you need to listen to her again. Yourself. We're often so good at listening to others. Our children, our partners, our coworkers, those we love. We know what they need, when they're tired or hurting, even how to bring back their smile. But with ourselves, we often pass right over. When we're exhausted, we push through. When we're sad, we go quiet. When we feel lonely, we distract ourselves with busyness. We forget to ask, how am I really feeling today? What am I quietly hiding inside? Reconnecting with yourself doesn't require anything grand. Sometimes, it's simply sitting down with a warm cup of tea. No pressure. No need to feel better right away. Just listening, gently, without judgment. And then, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to feel less lonely, even when you're still alone. There's a quiet kind of sadness that comes when you go through your days, doing everything you're supposed to, but no longer feel truly present in your own life. You wake up on time. You work, cook, clean, care for others. Everything runs as it should. Yet it feels like you're just passing through yourself. To begin healing that feeling, you don't need anything big. Just a few small, intentional acts that quietly remind you, I'm here. A slower step during your walk. The way you gently apply lotion to your skin. 5 minutes by the window. Doing nothing, just breathing. A hand placed on your chest. And the soft reminder, this body is still showing up for me. Every single day. When you bring your presence back into even the smallest actions, loneliness starts to fade. Because you're no longer someone moving through life. You are someone living inside it. Moment by moment. Breath by breath. After spending so much time closed off, the idea of opening up to others can feel more vulnerable than you expected. You're afraid of being hurt again. Afraid of giving too much and getting nothing in return. Afraid that no one will truly understand the quiet, tender parts of you. And that fear is real. Because you've been the one who always gave, even when it cost you your own peace. But opening your heart doesn't have to mean being hurt. You don't have to pour everything out just to feel worthy of love. You don't have to stretch yourself to fit in with someone else. What you do need is one thing: honesty with your own feelings. Honest when you're tired, when you need space, when a connection no longer feels safe. And honest, too, when you're ready to step forward, to let someone see you in a way that still protects your peace. Opening up, at its heart, is an act of self-love. It's not about finding someone to fill the emptiness. It's about allowing yourself to connect, only when you have enough gentleness inside to remain rooted in who you are. Being alone doesn't always mean being lonely. And loneliness isn't something we always have to run from. Because sometimes, it's in those quiet moments that we finally hear what's been waiting inside us. As you reach your 50s, life begins to slow down. No more constant calls from the other room. No more endless to-do lists. And fewer eyes turning toward you with expectation. You have more time with yourself. Something you once thought you longed for. But now, you realize there's a quiet, steady emptiness you can't quite name. It's not about craving attention. It's not about needing to be the center. You simply want to be truly seen. To be noticed not just by someone's eyes, but by their presence. But here's the quiet truth. You've been strong for so long, capable for so long, that people have come to believe you don't need anything anymore. They've grown used to the version of you who is always okay. And in that comfort, they forget even someone who appears whole still needs to be touched with gentleness. And maybe you can't fully blame them. You've learned to hide your tiredness well. You've practiced the smile, even when something in you was quietly breaking. You've passed the spotlight to others, and stayed behind in the quiet. Kind, quiet, and slowly disappearing. But you don't have to keep doing that. Not by begging for care, but by showing up fully and truthfully. By letting yourself be soft. Letting yourself need. Without shame. Without apology. Because when you live that honestly, when you no longer hide the edges of your fatigue or your tenderness, people begin to see you again. And those with real hearts, they'll come closer. Not out of pity, but because they feel drawn to someone who's finally real again. You don't need to be the person everyone depends on. You just need to be yourself. And trust that someone, someday, will look at you and understand. You deserve love. Not because you're perfect, but because you are real. And still quietly trying. Every single day. There are kinds of loneliness that don't need fixing. There are empty spaces that don't need to be filled by someone else. And there are wounds that don't need advice. Only a soft, quiet place to breathe beside them. Not everyone understands this. Many people think healing means action. That we need to move forward, change quickly, become more positive, bounce back fast. But you know what? Healing can also come through stillness. In a morning where you do absolutely nothing, but sit with a warm cup of tea. In a day when you stop trying to be okay. In a night when you don't scroll or distract yourself. You just lay your head on the pillow and let the tears come without needing to explain them. You don't have to rush into a happier version of yourself. You don't have to do something to get better. You only need to live honestly with how you feel. And more importantly, respect those feelings as a very real, very human part of you. Let the days pass gently, without hurting yourself any further. Softness is not weakness. It is a quiet strength. And sometimes, all it takes is one small act. A hand over your heart. A whispered, "I understand." To soften your chest. And remind you, you are already on your way home. If you still feel lonely, It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with feeling empty. Even if you've started loving yourself more. Even if you've slowed down. Even if you've learned to be honest with how you feel. Because loneliness isn't something to get over quickly. It's a quiet companion. One that sits beside you when things feel hollow. Not to hurt you, but to help you finally listen to what's been waiting inside. You don't have to fill the loneliness. You only need to sit with it. The way you've sat with others so many times before. You just need to stay with yourself long enough to realize loneliness is not a destination. It's a small bridge that leads you gently back to yourself. And if today you're standing somewhere on that bridge, I just want to say one thing. You are not lost. You are on your way home. Thank you for staying with Heart of Calm. If you ever need a soft space to pause and breathe with yourself, I'll be here. With quiet words, gentle steps, and a kind ear that expects nothing from you.